Hi there, this is Teresa Polkadots. We are here with the July class for Crafters Classroom, and we are making 2 cards in the class today, these 2 here. And in your kit came the stamp set and the die set. So we'll be using both of those in class. Things that we will not, in your kit that we'll be needing in the classroom is an acrylic block to hold the stamps. Good morning. So in your kit came the stamp set. So you'll need an acrylic block. You know what? I chose to do a brown ink instead of black. It's a little bit softer to me instead of black. Sometimes I like the starkness, but I thought I would try something different today. So I did use a brown ink. You will need a scissors. There's a little bit of fussy cutting, not a lot. You'll need a die cutting machine. My monster antique is over here. So you'll need that because you'll need to do some die cutting, specifically these flowers and this one. You'll need some, I used some dye-based markers. We're working with florals, obviously, so you'll want some of your favorite floral colors. And along that line, adhesive, you'll want to use maybe a fine tip adhesive for some of these tinier pieces that we're going to be attaching. I'm going to move this out of the way. We're going to get started. And okay, so I like to watercolor. So instead of coloring directly onto my pieces, I color onto a non-porous surface, and then I use a watercolor brush, and then I color in my pieces. So however you like to color is fine. It doesn't have to be the way that I'm doing it. It's just that's my favorite way. So you might as well get a couple extra like technique ideas as we're going through here. So in your kit came the stamp set and the die set. We're making the 2 cards, and you have lots of possibilities with this, the things you received in your kit. So what you will need, again, is a die cutting machine, scissors, an acrylic block, ink, some markers to do some coloring. Otherwise, I think we're good to go. So, the first one, we're gonna do our stamping first. I think that's gonna be the best way to do it. Your card came already with the circle cut out. That was a penny black die as well. It is available on the website. It comes with, I think, 4 or 5 different circle stitched dies that you can cut out. So we're going to go ahead and fold that. So now we have our base card set. We are then, in your kit came the cutout. We're not going to use this in class, but if you want to use it for something else, you can certainly welcome to do that. We are going to stamp 3 times this floral. I'm going to get this guy out of the way. So we're going to take our stamp that has the 2 flowers in it and place it on our block. And then we're going to stamp twice. So I want to get 2 of these flowers and 1 of this one. So however that fits on your piece that came in your kit should be just fine. Tammy's here. Hi, Tammy. So again, I've used a brown ink instead of black. This one is Coffee by Ranger. So just a little bit more of a subtle, instead of using black. I like to, you know, you guys take classes for a reason, right? So this is a way for you to get like different ideas. So, oh, I need scrap paper, which I knew I was going to need. And now I started using like different color for my scrap paper because here's why. You can actually see the margin of where you're stamping. Sometimes I use like a white just scrap paper, and sometimes it's just harder to see where I actually am, where my piece is. So if you use a different color for your scrap paper, it kind of helps with that visual. So I'm going to stamp here once. I'm going to stamp again. I just look at the detail. Like, I just love Penny Black products for that specific reason. There's just, they do a great job with their product. Okay, and then I'm going to stamp one more over here. Now see, I went off there a little bit, which makes me sad. But I'm also going to cover up one of these bigger ones, so I will just leave that. Now I realize I did 2 of these instead of 2 of these. Well, you know what? That's what we're going to do today. Okay, so stamping out of the way for this one. With the florals, we're going to take the word thank you. We're going to stamp that next in the base card. So this is a little bit tricky, guys, okay? Because once you fold it, it wants to flop up at you. So when you go to stamp, it hits your block first before you might be ready. So I'm going to take my thank you stamp, get that on my block. Now I have a couple different ways I can do it. Like I said, you just got to be careful that you don't have ink on the background of your block. Otherwise it could hit the front of your card as you stamp. Or you can open it up and get close to where you want to be. I'm not very good at that, so I'm going to take the chance that I'm going to ink and not get ink anywhere else on the back, on the block. So that way I can see exactly where I'm going to go. I'm going to go up toward the top of that circle so I have room for my flowers down here. All right. Ooh, I missed a little, so I'm going to try to line it back up. All right, got my thank you done. So that's off to the side. We're back to our flowers here. Now this is where you can color however you like. I like to use a watercolor technique, and let's see. I'm going to use, so I've got an orange and I have a kind of this reddish color and a purple. So those 3 I'm going to use. Choose whatever you like. We're going to color these flowers in, and we'll give it a couple minutes to dry before we cut it out. So we're going to start with this card, and then we're going to leave and come back when the colors are a little bit dry. All right, so this is how I color. I draw directly onto a non-porous surface. So this is my marker, obviously. You can use any type of non-porous surface. You can use a dinner plate, an acrylic block. You can use anything that's not going to soak up your marker. Once I have that, I like to use, I have a little bit of water here. I like to put a little bit of water directly on my palette so I can pull little drops if I don't need something big. So I first get my brush wet. I'm going to tap that off on some paper towel so it's not soaking wet. And then I'm just going to, excuse me, pull my color, and then I just start coloring, painting. And you can tell it takes a little bit of a, it's a learning technique. So if you haven't done it before, sometimes your brush is a little dry. That means you need a little more water. If you're not seeing the color come through, pick up some more color. I like to start where I want it darkest, because I can then move to a lighter area, or where I don't want it so dark, which is usually the center of whatever I'm working on. So I start on the edges. Hopefully you can see that. I can get a little closer. So my centers are a little bit lighter, and where I want it a little darker is where I kind of start. That's like loads my brush with the color So that's going to be its darkest point. Anybody have any questions? I don't see anybody with questions, but let me know. I have Tammy here. She can help. I happy with this little flower right now. You can also just peek over my shoulder, Tammy. Okay, she's whispering. Like we don't know she's here, but we know she's here. All right. To change my color, I am just gonna completely dunk my brush in the water, tap it off on paper towel, and then I'm gonna use a different color. So this is really kind of fun because it's easy enough to change up your color without changing like a lot of things. It's water-based, so it cleans up easy. And I'm gonna come in here. I think I also want like a brighter yellow color. Add that in there. Anyway, okay, over here, we're gonna do this guy again. I'm just going on the outside first. And that's where it's darkest, because when you pull that color, it's gonna be at its darkest. So I'm not using a ton of water either, so I'm just using amazing cardstock from Paper Cut. Their base cardstock is nice quality, so I don't need to necessarily use watercolor paper, but you can if that's your thing. Also, if you're just coloring with markers, you just go right ahead and do whatever coloring you like. I'm done with that color, so I'm going to move on to this purple guy. And another spot on my palette here. Again, anything non-porous you can do this with. And you don't have to do this watercolor look. You can just color as you normally would. Picking up color, kind of going on the outlines here. We're going to come in with a yellow in that very center of the flowers, and we're going to let this dry before we die cut it. So then we'll be moving on to card number 2 while we let this dry. Card number 2 is a really cool technique as well if you've not done it. It's called paper piecing. It's kind of an older technique. I'm not saying that I'm old, but it's a little bit older. All right. Really liking the way the color turned out. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in the center, and I didn't even hear, even Tammy didn't laugh at that comment about saying that I'm old, but that's okay. I got some yellow here. I'm just gonna really grab a lot of color and come in the middle of these flowers here. That just makes it pop. I'm not worried about the stems or anything like that because we're gonna die cut this out, and I just really want the flowers to finish off. So let's set that off to the side. Like I said, I use some really nice quality cardstock. I don't need watercolor necessarily for this. I get all my cardstock from Paper Cut. Thanks, Sarah. So I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm also done with my, well, no, I'm going to do the stem. So I'll keep my palette nearby. All right. So setting that off to the side. Let's work on our next card. I'm still going to, I'll still use my scrap paper here. And I just started recently using a different colored scrap paper other than white because I can see the contrast, because oftentimes I work with a white card, and if I have a white background, it's hard for me to differentiate where my margins are.
Okay, that kind of makes you sound old.
Huh?
That kind of makes you sound old.
Okay. Come on. No, Tammy just said that made me sound kind of old. Probably. My eyesight's maybe not what it used to be. But maybe there's some of you out there that can appreciate that. All right, we are moving on to the second card. This is called paper piecing. Your kit includes the pieces that you'll need. Your base card has already been cut to minus this edge here so that we can put some background here that'll come from behind. So for the millionth time, the way you want to fold this card is the bump is on the inside. So when you feel that bump, you want to fold it so that bump goes in the inside. The reason for that is when it's scored, the fibers get stretched, and then when you fold it, you don't get that cracking on the spine. So you want to fold your base card. We got a little bit here on the right margin that is exposed, and we're going to take our piece that is in your kit, looks like this. We're going to attach it edge to edge on all sides to that right hand side. Did I say left hand before? I don't know, I might have. Okay, so let's do that so we get that out of the way. I'm just gonna go off camera for a second here. With my adhesive, you can use tape runner, glue, whatever you want. Okay, now here's a thing. If you make a mistake using tape, I cut my piece a little too long, so it's overhanging right here. So this is the beauty of two-sided tape. It also means I'm old because I use it a lot. And that's all we had back then. Seriously, we didn't have tape runners. Tammy's laughing at me. We didn't have tape runners. You know, we had Elmer's glue. Who uses that? So if you do, you know, get a piece of adhesive that's too long, here's the trick. Fold it back on top of itself. And now it's sticky. So it's stuck to itself, and now it's still sticky. So we're going to put that on the edge, margin to margin here, flush to the three sides of that front of the card. So we have that. And then when it's closed, we have that exposed. So kind of a fun little trick. And we also, in your kit came this checkered piece. So you can use either side. It's double-sided. You see that. So I'm going to use the same side as the coordinating back piece here. When you do paper piecing, you want to use paper that has smaller prints in it so that when you cut them out, the print is fitting for the size of what you're doing. If I had...
Like the 6x6 pads are really nice for that.
Yes, Tammy brought up a really good point. 6x6 pads are really good for that because oftentimes the prints are a lot smaller. And if you get like a 12x12 paper where the images are big, this isn't going to work so well depending on how big your piece is. So calling it paper piecing, because this is a little bit smaller of an image, I like to use smaller designs. Okay, so we are going to take our floral stamp. Floral, say that like on the sound. So I'm using this one and attaching it to my block. So I'm really only concerned about getting the floral head on the piece of paper, this checkered paper here. Not really worried about the leaves right now, just the floral part. Again, I'm using a brown ink instead of black. Just gives it a little softer tone. And doesn't really matter where I stamp on here, right? I'm going to be cutting it out like that. Okay. While I still have my ink out and the front of my card, we're going to stamp the entire flower. So this part we're going to be cutting out. I want the full image on the front of the card. So I'm going to go probably about here. Don't drop it on your card like I almost did. Okay. So I'm inking up the entire flower. And kind of keep in mind where the crease of the card is so that you allow for a little bit of room there. And I'm going to go on a little bit of an angle. Just give that a nice press. Voila. Beautiful. All right. Now, I'm not going to stamp the thank you up here because I might not want to use this as a thank you card. I might need a birthday card or something else. So if you want to go ahead and stamp thank you, the other word that came with that stamp set is congratulations. So you could also stamp that now. Or you can leave it and just stamp it whenever you need something, which is what I generally do. So I stamp thank you on the first one, so I'm going to leave this one blank. Okay, so now we have the job of cutting out this flower. So I am going to use the die that came with my set to get me this far, and then we're going to be cutting apart the little pieces and then attaching. So I'm going to take this and run it through my die, my ancient die. It's not as old as me, but it's pretty old.
It still works.
It still works, right, exactly. I do like the metallic plates though, because they help hold those dies in place. Okay, once I have that done, looks like this. All I need is the petals, right? So we're going to be cutting out each petal individually. Now, I like to cut a little bit on the outside of the ink. Actually, I'm going to change my mind here. I'm going on the inside. We probably didn't even need to like cut it out, but it's a little less paper to. So if you cut inside where you've stamped for this technique, we've already stamped the base here, so I don't necessarily need the outside edge. You see what I mean? Because now I can place it in there and the border, if you will, is already stamped. So I'm just really trying to get the inside of this piece right here. And for me, I think it's a lot easier to just glue them down as I go along instead of cutting out the pieces and trying to figure out where they go. So I'm going to attach it right away. Just going to use some liquid glue. It's helpful if you have a fine tip or a chisel tip for this. And I think I am this way. So I'm just going to get that right in the center. And what I stamped originally is going to keep that. We're going to keep that detail. So we're just cutting out the inside. Hopefully that makes sense. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to go. So we should get it figured out by then. Again, so I'm cutting out just on the inside of where we stamped. All right, I'm gonna just glue and attach as I go along. See, this is fun. This is a fun technique. I haven't done this one in a while. Because oftentimes you need to have a stamp that has like a larger area to do this in. A lot of stamps are very detailed. This doesn't work. And again, you want to be able to use a paper that the prints are smaller. That's why liquid glue is easy, is nice too. You can still have time to move it around. All right. So smaller prints. And Tammy brought up a really good option of 6x6 papers because our prints are a little bit smaller. Now on this piece, you can see that I am actually going to cut right through that stamped little middle section of the flower. You still want that there, okay? So cut right through that. And I'm cutting onto the inside. Okay. So now I still have that little tiny detail that's going to go right here. Okay. Stamp that, or attach that, sorry. We probably didn't even need to really die cut this out, but I don't know. You got a die and you probably want to use it, so that's what we did. I'm going to attach this little piece. And it's going to go right in there. See how it's all coming together now? Now this piece here, again, we're just going to go right to the inside of my brown where I stamped. I don't need any of that necessarily because we already stamped the background on the base card. But I do want all this detail here, right? So I'm just going to keep cutting just the outside. Ooh. Lots of little pieces falling off. All right. So that guy is going to go right there. See, and we still have our detail left behind, so we still want that on there. All right. A little bit more glue. And then, now I got to have you for 45 minutes, so we got like 15 more minutes to go. We're doing great, I think. I'm not sure who's after me. Can you look, Tammy? That goes right there. See, it's all coming together so prettily. I don't even know if that's a word, but it sounds good. All right, cutting out, I have 2 pieces left. And after we finish this card, we're going to do a little giveaway. This one's a little tricky up there at the top, so do your best.
After you, oh, there's a break from 11:45 to 1.
Oh, okay, you guys get a break. Okay, so if we run over a little bit, we're still doing okay. All right. Well, guys get to actually eat some lunch today. Okay, so this is going to go on this petal. And you know what? Actually, if you, I guess that wouldn't have worked. You could actually mix up your papers too and create a whole different little look here with the piecing. Meaning I could use like a different side of the, I'd have to stamp again, I'd need more paper, but you could alternate or mix up the pieces that you're using here to give you another look. Which I think that might be what I do next time when I do this again. It's sticking to me. Who's at 1?
It is Spellbinders, I think.
Spellbinders,
Yeah,
okay.
Spellbinders.
Spellbinders at 1 o'clock. So you guys get a lunch break after this. And this piece goes there. So when you're looking to do this technique, you have to look at piece stamps that have like big areas that are open. Like this would not work. Well, you could like kind of take chunks of it, but you want your stamp to have like open areas. So keep that in mind. We have our last petal here that I'm going to cut out. And then we are going to take a green marker. We're going to color. I didn't paper piece the stem or the leaves, so we're just going to color those in. Again, along the inside of the image here. So that's what I got. I also have a little mess over here. Okay. So yeah, keep in mind you can like mix and match papers. You don't have to use the same paper. You would just have to stamp a couple more times on whatever you're using, whatever piece of paper that you want. All right. Ta-da! So my last piece is in place. So I created the entire flower just from different papers. So I am going to color in the stem and the leaf. Back to my palette here. So for those of you that just joined, I like to do watercolor. I don't like to draw directly onto this image. If you like doing that, go right ahead. It's just not my thing. So I want to put some color on my palette. I'm using a green here. Trying to keep this all in for you guys. Okay. And my brush went somewhere.
I think it's behind you in the cup. Yep, by the register.
Yes. All right. See, good thing to have Tammy here. So I'm just using water and a little brush. Damp brush, picking up some color, and then I'm gonna go and just apply. It's kind of light there, so I know I could probably grab more color. So it does take a little bit of practice. And then I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit of shading. So where it went lighter, good, I can always add, make it darker. Anything non-porous you can use as a palette. You can use a dinner plate, a plastic chunk, which is what I have, and even an acrylic block works. All right. I'm gonna go really dark underneath here, just to give it some detail, different shading. Voila. Okay, so I opted not to stamp in the class today because you can use possibly a birthday card or sympathy card or a get well card, whatever you like. So we're gonna opt out of that today. And then once we fold it, we got our exposed back piece here, and then you have lots of room for anything inside. So this is paper piecing. I see a few of you are jumping in kind of late. So you can use different colored or different types of paper or different styles, different patterns of paper. You generally want something that's a little bit on the smaller scale. So 6x6 pads are awesome. You can, obviously here I used the same piece of paper, but you can change up your papers to give you different looks on the petals. I'm looking for bigger, larger images to make this technique a little more successful. Okay. We are going to go back to that first card, which is this one, which is we had our colors or our flowers that we already colored. Get this out of the way. So this one we are going to use the die and cut these 3 flowers out. Now, this might be, depending on how you stamped, I'm going to go here and cut these 2 out, and then I'll just come over here and cut that last guy out, okay? Again, really liking my metallic what do you call it? Base?
Your
Metallic base, so that it just kind of, yeah, keeps my die in place. All right, so on our first card, we already did, so this circle came die cut for you already, thanks to Heather. Thanks, Heather. She's not here right now, but without her, I would not be able to do this. I'm telling you right now. All right, so I got those 2 cut out, and then I'm going to cut out my third one. And so here's the thing too, guys. You don't have to use the stamp and die just as it comes, right? So thinking a little bit out of the box, which is why I think you guys take classes, because that's my job, right? So I don't necessarily have to use them just as they come. And so I don't have to use this whole thing. I don't have to use it just like this. So I like to give you options and variations of what you get in your kit so that you can learn new things. So I just want the florals here, so I'm going to cut out anything extra. And this one I stamped a little bit close to the end, so that's okay because I'm going to overlap it, okay? So sometimes when you make a little mistake, you can generally always fix it. That's what we do. And then I'm going to cut out these two. I'm going to kind of go right on the line on this one because they're attached. And this one I'm just going to cut off a little excess from the die. I was going to do a giveaway. Okay, hold on. I have to wait till Tammy gets back. Okay, I got 3 flowers. I'm going to cut this off too. And in your kit with this one should also be a pop dot, a foam square. Sorry, Jennifer, I use white ones. I know she's always into black, but I use white. I'm going to pop one of these flowers, so you're going to want your foam square too. So I have all 3 cut out. We already did our saying, so I'm just going to kind of arrange these. And I think I'm going to pop dot this one here. It's a little different than than the original, and you should have a color copy of the originals in your kit too, so you can at least continue to have the idea. So I am going to attach these two completely down, but be careful that you don't get adhesive here so that you don't want it on the base, the background of this card. Okay, so be careful where you're putting adhesive here. I'm actually just going to use tape. The thing with liquid glue is that you still have a little bit of time to move it if you need to. So I'm going to go here, and this one, I think I'm going to go like that. And then this one I'm going to pop dot, so you should have a foam square in there, or in your kit. So I'm just going to pop this one off a little bit. Tammy's back so we can do our drawing. We're almost done. And again, be careful where you place it so that it's not going to hit your background. And voila, see? And also by just changing the colors of what you're using can totally change the look of your card. So we have our 2 cards done. And then you also have envelopes in your kit. So whenever you need a card, you'll be ready. All right. So we are going to do a little giveaway. Got a couple minutes here. And what I have today is a couple Penny Black stamps, of course. We love her. So this is a textures kind of background stamp. Comes in very useful. And then I have just a cute little sayings you can cut out and stamp, or kind of use these for some fun ideas. And so what I did is I put everybody's name that bought a kit in a little basket, and Tammy drew a name, and the lucky winner of our giveaway is Paula Kopeski. Congratulations, Paula. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. Your next class is 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and so you got a little bit of a break. So we learned a couple fun things today. The paper piecing, again, look for a bigger image to start with, and then you can use papers or different papers. You would just have to stamp, you know, a few times on whatever you want to use. A little bit of watercoloring here. This is really a cool die, a circle die that cuts out that front portion that gives us just something different. We did cut away from the front of this card to expose the back, so that's kind of a cool little fun thing to do. Sometimes when you're designing or creating a card, you run out of ideas. So I like, sometimes these are older techniques that I've done, but not lately. The other thing that I like to mention is if you have a card like this, if you give it a quarter turn, you have the same imagery, but now you just made it a little different, and your saying could go this way. Same thing here. If you just give a quarter turn to your card, you now have a whole new idea. Obviously, I have to reposition these. Actually, if I just turn the word thank you this way, be super cute too. So enjoy your Saturday. I know I'm going to enjoy mine. And thanks, and I'll see you in August.